Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette and this is Evolve with Monette. I'm a professional intuitive empath, a published author, as well as a chef and an all-around life path 3. But today I want to get right into the video. You see the title, you know what we're going to be talking about. Mr. Believe I Can Fly, Mr. R.Kelly. So today there was this incredible interview that was conducted by Gayle King, Oprah's bestie in chief, and she really took R.Kelly to task. Now, for those of you that may be tuning into this video and you are not aware as to what has been going on, Mr. Kelly has found himself in quite a bit of hot water once again. And I say again, and that will come up in a moment here, because he's already found himself in the same exact kind of hot water pertaining to taking women and holding them against their will, not feeding them, sometimes torturing them, raping, hurting, and maiming. This new thing we'll say allegedly behind just to be safe, but that is the energy and that is the space that Mr. Kelly finds himself in. And he already has had this problem before, if you may recall, about 20 years ago. But what I found that was notable about this interview is that he is in a deep sense of denial. And as an empath, I was assessing him, and what I saw was a person that was a caged animal. At points he stood up, he flailed his arms, he yelled and screamed, his voice cracked, he cried, he was sweating profusely. This is a man who, as he said in the video, feels as though he's fighting for his life. And what was not lost on me is that today we are in Mercury retrograde. And that retrograde falls in Pisces because it is Pisces season as we have crossed over the threshold here into March. Could not have picked, he and his team could not have picked a worse day to have this interview. Because when we're dealing with retrogrades, we're dealing with clunky communication that doesn't come out the way we mean it at all, and we oftentimes find ourselves tripping over our words. It also can affect electronics, booking flights, purchasing homes, cars, contracts. I have a video here on my channel regarding retrograde and how to survive it. However, in regards to R.Kelly today, I don't think there was anything that he could have done to survive it. Sometimes the universe has a very clever way of course correcting us when we refuse to take accountability. And I feel like today what you witnessed was a course correction of epic proportions served by Miss Karma herself. And we know what kind of mood she can be in sometimes. The reason I say that is because we often are given chances to rectify our behavior and reflect. Sometimes they happen at our Saturn returns for you metaphysics watching. Sometimes they happen at various intersections that aren't predictable in our lives. But the thing that the universe, source, God is so gracious to do is allow us to be better. 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, R.Kelly ran into the same problem where his proclivities overtook him and he was almost taken out legally, but he, as he said this morning, beat that case. The great irony of it is that we all have to evolve. And no matter whether R.Kelly wants to go kicking and screaming into his future or into a long good night, because as I was watching it, I thought this is a man who very well could hurt himself. And God forbid it, I don't wish that, but I energetically felt this transition as I was watching him. And I saw him slip into something very dark and desperate. And I thought, this is somebody who almost is feeling like he has nothing to lose. He feels like his legacy is being stripped from him, and he's not taking any accountability for the havoc and chaos and torment that will last a lifetime for so many women, probably more than we know about, allegedly. So what happened today was ill-advised if you're counsel, and I'm not. I'm an empath. And what I felt was not only a person in danger, but I felt the weight of all of his sins crushing down on him. And I felt like it's not only long overdue, but this here, even if you hate R.Kelly, is to help him to evolve, because we cannot stay in our sickness and our dysfunction. The universe won't allow it. God is so gracious. He will not allow it. We will have to change. And especially if our life is to the detriment of others, which we now understand quite fully how detrimental R.Kelly has been to those women and handlers and financiers around him. At one point, Gail asked him, do you believe that you are innocent, or do you believe that you harmed anybody? And there was a brilliant body language tell. He said, absolutely not. And he caught himself nodding his head yes. And because I think he realized just at the tail end of the last nod, he put his head down in his hands and began to cry, almost in an effort to save face. Go check out the interview and you'll see that mark there. It was fascinating to me. Also, because of that Pisces in Mercury right now, he told on himself several times. He didn't mean to. It was clunky and clumsy the way that signature retrograde is. And he told on himself when he said that, why would I have two daughters bought to me by their father, and when I stop paying them, now I'm a bad guy? What are you paying him for, R.Kelly? The questions answer themselves. We all have an opportunity to be different. If we have an addiction, a sickness, if we struggle with a vice, which we're human and we all do, have something. What R.Kelly is dealing with feels monstrous. It feels that way to me personally. I have such strong feelings about this. But what I will say as an empath observing, if R.Kelly were my client, I would be saying, let's unpack the childhood trauma. That doesn't mean you get an excuse, R.Kelly, because you get none. But what you're not going to do is pretend and live in the state of delusion, which we saw fully blown today. The state of delusion. Now, it's interesting, too, because when we're dealing with Pisces, we are dealing with the energy of disillusionment sometimes. Pisces can easily get into that, and they have to stay very grounded and focused and do a lot of kind of grounding things to stay present. And so what we saw was a person that had completely spun out of reality, and he feels attacked. But the truth is, it is as a result of his many alleged attacks that we find ourselves at this intersection where he is essentially confessing on morning television his sins and trying to do a mea culpa. But the only person that he's going to have to answer to is much bigger than any of us. The law will have their way with him, and that is my prediction. This time, R.Kelly will be not escaping. He will absolutely serve time, and I fear that if it's not due to harm from himself, it will be due to harm from somebody else, because his buttery voice will only take him so far in prison, where pedophiles, rapists, and child molesters are not looked kindly upon. I feel like there's a fate like Jeffrey Dahmer, or a fate like Whitey Bulger that will meet R.Kelly. And I know ever predict death is not something I like to do, but I feel like if R.Kelly doesn't figure out how to evolve through this and own up to his wrongdoings and take accountability and responsibility, I feel like he will encounter somebody who's a vigilante that will. So I know that's kind of a dark place to go, but I wanted to talk about how a retrograde can affect us and what we saw happen and how it affected him. If he had an astrologer, they would have advised him to never do this interview, even in this month, let alone on this day. He could not have picked a worse time. Anyway, leave your comments and your thoughts below of R.Kelly, what you thought about the interview. I can't wait to talk to you about that and have a little bit of a dialogue there. And join me next time for a bit of a lighter video, and we will continue to evolve together.